All right, g'day everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Got the 4 Points. Pete, it feels like we only had 1 week off, and suddenly it's finals time already, all around Victoria and around lots of local leagues in Australia. Episode 21 for this season. We've been churning them out, but as I said, we did have a week off, and it feels like in that week, so much has happened. There has just been a plethora of exciting local football stories. Lots of them around finals, lots of them around teams trying to get into finals. There have been all sorts of eligibility chaos is going on. There have been more people getting to 100 goals. There's been lots of exciting results. Can't wait to cover it all with you. How you been?
Yeah, been very well, thank you. You're right. We probably just missed an important week. That on reflection, not that there was much we could do about it with our schedules, but probably a week that you reflect back on and go, oh yeah, a bit happened in that week, which got us to this week, and then off the back of the weekend gone, you go, oh yeah, a bit more's happened on the weekend. So now we've got 2 weekends where there's been absolute bumper football. There's been teams competing for final spot. There's leagues already in finals that are going through that. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot to cover this episode. I know that we're going to miss some really big and interesting stories, but I think having a look at the run sheet, we've got some pretty juicy ones to sink our teeth into today.
Yep, we certainly have. So, as a reminder, always you can check us out on either Spotify or YouTube and send us any tips to our Instagram at Got the 4 Points and to our Gmail as well. Pete, I think we better get into it with all of these exciting stories. Why don't you lead us off with stuff that has caught your eye?
Yeah, happy to lead us off with stuff that caught my eye, and we're going to first the Central Highlands Football Netball League, Rob. And first, what I just want to take you through is what the ladder finished in the Central Highlands Football League. Now, this is a big league, so they play a traditional top eight finals.
Mm,
I know we've said in the past that people need to let us know what their final systems are because we don't know whether a team's pushing for finals or if they're completely out of it. But this is the traditional eight. Now, Dunstown dominated the league, 15 wins, one loss, 60 points. The points from there on in, Gordon on 48, Skipton on 48, Dalesford on 48. So your top four, think about your AFL top four vying for double chance. Your second, third, and fourth positions all decided by percentage. Then you go to Rokewood on 44 points in fifth, and then you go Bungaree 40 points, Newland 40 points, and Springbank 40 points. So the following that, I mean, interestingly enough, you get to ninth and it's Learmonth on 28. So there is a bit of a divide in the top
mm,
eight to the bottom eight.
mm.
But that bottom eight, there's the ability there that, I can imagine similar to what's been happening in the AFL recently with, if you lose this one and they win this one, you could end up sixth, or if you win
Yeah.
that and they lose, you could end up second. There must have been a lot of permutations as to where those eight were going to finish, probably outside of Dunstown, where those eight were going to finish from two to eight. So that was where the sort of final round took them. And then on the weekend gone, they had their finals, Rob. And Rokewood has won its first final in the club's history in the Central Highlands League, beating Springbank by 36 points. So 12-20-92, not great
Oh.
kicking, to 8-8-56. Now, they've not won a final since 2010 when they were actually in the Lexington Plains League. Now, listeners may be familiar with the Lexington Plains League. It was a league that existed for clubs like Rokewood, Navarre, Natty Bialaba, and we've actually seen that league a number of years ago now merge into both the Central Highlands and also into the Maryborough Castlemaine District Football
Mm.
League. So great work by a nickname that we have heard a couple of times on the podcast for other teams, but Rokewood known as the Hoppers as well.
Mm.
Um, so a great win by the Hoppers in that final. Um, Now they kicked 4-6 to 0-1 in the final quarter to cap that win.
Mm,
So they were in front for most of the day, but only sort of, couple of goals to a goal in front. It was 7 points the margin at three-quarter time. And then they slammed on 4-6 to just the one behind for Springbank to seal that win. So absolutely incredible there for Rokewood. I'm sure there was a bit of partying, but maybe not too much partying because that now puts them into a semi-final, Rob. And it interestingly puts them into a semi-final against Dunstown, who lost in the 1v4 match to Daylesford by 9 points. Only their second loss of the year. Now, Daylesford, in their own right, are the reigning premiers from last season. So they're certainly no slouch. And based off percentage, just deciding positions 2 to 4, really could have been, the second best team in the comp based off that. So really interesting outcome there. If Roke would want to keep that finals winning streak alive after winning their first one since 2010 in the Lexington League, they're going to have to do it against stiff opposition in Dunstown, who I can imagine are coming pretty hard for that. So, other results in that league, Skipton in the other double chance game defeated Gordon by 38 points. And in the other elimination final, Bungaree got the win over Newland by 4 goals. So some interesting football there in the Central Highlands Football League, and I'm keen to see what Rokewood do in their second final. And I'm keen to see in that match how Dunstown react to the loss.
yeah, great summary there. Don't forget Correndap in the Rokewood Correndap merger there.
Correct?
Um, and yes, they are the Hoppers, but green and white, not green and
Yes,
gold, like lots
correct.
of other Hoppers teams. So one of those local footy jumpers that I really like. Bit unique, bit different.
Yep.
Can't think of any other towns that go with the green and the white V. So very good work
Mm,
by the Hoppers there. Dunstown, I think, are sporting Port Adelaide jumpers at the moment.
correct.
But yes, anyway, very interesting to see that they lost that game. Quite a surprise, but you'd have to think Daylesford, with the recent winning memory of premierships, yeah, they're not a team anyone's going to want to face in the finals. So,
Oh no.
yeah, well done there. Great summary. Now, I want to take us, Pete, to another league we've talked about quite a bit because it's close to our hearts and close to our heartland in the Maryborough Castlemaine League. We talk about it a lot. But Pete, the top four absolutely delivered this weekend in
Mm,
week one of the finals. So at the end of the home and away season, like you did there with the Central Highlands League, I'm just going to tell you about the top four. Um, it was Trentham finishing on top of the ladder on 66 points. Talbot came in second on 64 points. Great to see Talbot back up the top of the ladder there. Been quite some time since the Hawks have had a good run at finals, I believe.
yep.
So well done to them. Carisbrook were third on 62 points, and Harcourt were fourth on 60 points. So not quite as much of an even pile up as we had in the Central Highlands League, but still very few points, and including a few draws, separating those teams at the very top of the Maryborough Castlemaine League ladder. And the first week of finals absolutely delivered. So, in the first final, Trentham ended up defeating Harcourt by only 4 points. They were down by 3 goals at three-quarter time, Pete, before setting up the win. Sorry, they were down by 3 goals at quarter time, not three-quarter time.
Yep.
And they managed to peg their way slowly back into the game, and they set the win up in the end with a 5 goal to 2 third quarter. And then it must have been a very nervy 2 goal each final term
Mm,
before that final result played out their 4 point win. So well done to Trentham. Now, the second game amongst the top four was played at Avoca. The first final that I just described was played at Natty Yallock. Second final at Avoca was between Carisbrook and Talbot. And as we know from our chat with Redbacks coach Brandon Weatherson earlier in the year, these are two towns that, in a footballing sense, don't really like each other very much. That would have been a fascinating game to watch. And unbelievably, for how tight that has been all throughout the year, Carisbrook got off to a ripping start with 7 goals to none in the first quarter, and Talbot only managed 1 goal in the second quarter, so the margin was still 44 points at half time. Now, what has happened in the second half is one of the all-time great almost comebacks of the century. Um, Talbot kicked 6 goals to 3 in the third term and 5 goals to 1 in the last, and they've ended up going down by 1 point in the end. So well done to Carisbrook. I don't know who it was that kicked that goal in the last term for them, but they are going to be the toast of the town for allowing Carisbrook to hang on in extraordinary fashion there at the Avoca ground. Jared Stevens for Talbot and Harry Whitty for Carisbrook both kicked 5 goals. Very impressive performances. Sounded like a fantastic game.
Mm.
So Harcourt and Talbot march on, and they will play the winners of the elimination finals that I don't have in front of me just at the moment. But you'd have to think that that top four are fairly much away and clear. And it will be very interesting to see when those teams match up again in the preliminary finals, who will prevail and get into the grand final.
Yeah, great summary, Rob. And I know for a fact that Trentham Harcourt game actually had a shot after the siren from a Harcourt player to try and win it, which
Okay.
didn't get in. It was quite a difficult shot on a really tight angle, which one that I think the player had to try and do the little check side kick to even have a chance, but it wasn't successful. So and you can only imagine that. We've said it a lot on this podcast. Bad kicking is bad football. Good
Mm,
kicking is good football. And the 6 goals straight that Talbot kicked in the third quarter gave them a sniff in that game
yeah.
that they've just gone down in to
Yeah.
Carisbrook.
Yeah.
If you go into that quarter and you kick 2-4 instead of six straight, that it's pretty
Mm,
much over. But
yeah.
six straight set them up to have a real crack. And
Yeah.
you can only imagine they're probably ruining what was a really poor start of Carisbrook, who also kicked really well in that first quarter.
Yeah.
So good kicking is good football, as opposed to bad kicking being bad football, as we say. Rob, I'm going to take us to the Gippsland Football Netball League. Now, Morwell, Warragul, and Wonthaggi, they all ended the year on 44 points. Percentage deciding the last two final spots. So, as a man that's very good at math, you'd understand that 3 doesn't go into 2. And so 1 does need to miss out. But what was really intriguing, Rob, is that all teams entered the last round on 40 points. So all teams are on 40 points, pushing for the final 2 positions. Now, Wonthaggi play Moe, who sit third on the ladder. Rob, they belt them by 70 points. They dismantle third on the ladder by 70 points, which you think, holy hell, they've just given themselves a chance here, Wonthaggi. Now, as it stands, you go, okay, all we need is for Morwell or Warragul to either take a misstep and lose, or maybe have just a really close win and we can edge them on percentage after a 70-point drubbing of third. Not to be, because Warragul go out and win by 44 points and Morwell go out and win by 60 points. So your 70-point drubbing of third is basically null and void. And you've really achieved nothing in the end. But it was quite incredible seeing that, especially for Warragul, the 44-point win by Warragul. Look, in all honesty, Morwell probably, if they won their game, which they did, were probably home and hosed with their percentage. Their percentage finished the year at 129.
Yeah.
Warragul's percentage of 113 versus Wonthaggi's percentage of 109 would have been where the nervousness was potentially coming from a Warragul perspective, given what Wonthaggi were able to do. But incredibly well done there by those teams. They now go into the final series along with Leongatha, Traralgon, and Moe, who were the top 3. And that's, look, been a really even league all season, Rob. There's been a lot of upsets in that league. There's been a lot of toing and froing between the teams moving up and down the ladder. And some big names in that league as well. His name escapes me right at this point in time. Why
A
can't I
really
think of
big
it?
name.
From Essendon, played for Port Melbourne this season, only just retired. Dyson Heppel.
Dyson
There
Heppel,
you go.
yeah.
Finally got there. I could picture the face and the hair, and I couldn't think of the name off the top of my head. So I know that that's been a really fun league to follow, the Gippy League. So that is a top five. So Lee and Gather will get the bye going into this first round of finals. Traralgon will play Moe in the qualifying final. And then the two teams that did what they needed to do to make finals in Morwell and Warragul will go head to head to see who goes on. But I also had a little soft spot there for yourself, Rob, knowing that Wonthaggi were one of your paddock to premiership picks for last season.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always got a soft spot for them. Pretty unlucky to miss out after, to be honest, doing everything that they could in the final round to give themselves a shot. But yeah, fascinating league. Traralgon, Moe, and Leongatha have all spent time on top of the ladder this
Yes.
season in that league. And being a final five, of course, Leongatha managing to edge out those other two at the end and take that double chance and that straight into the prelim final spot is very valuable for them. And I've got no doubt that they will be looking to avenge last year's unexpected finals exit. So yeah, big for Leongatha there, but a big first week of finals coming up
Yep.
before they're even involved. So yeah, really enjoying following the Gippy League. Okay, going in my case now back northwest, Pete. I'm going to take us to the Loddon Valley League. Now, I will come a little bit later to the Paddock to Premiership in a specific sense, but I want to cover a little bit of that about the Loddon Valley League now because a town that is quite dear to my heart. I quite like this little town in northwest or north central Victoria, Inglewood. The great name, also a great unique local footy jumper, navy blue with a white V. They've won their first final in 22 years, heading into this final series, and followed it up with a second. They have hit form at the right time of year, Pete, and they are making a march for the flag potentially. However, they do have to get through the teams who have been far and away the hottest two clubs on the scene this year in the Loddon Valley League. That's Morong in the preliminary final coming up this weekend for Inglewood
Yep.
and the rampaging mean machine that is
Mm.
Bridgewater. They have come home with the proverbial wet sail in the Loddon Valley League this year. Um, so look, to be honest, I think Bridgewater are going into this final series now as flag favourites.
Agreed.
I'd be interested to know whether they have got some players back from injury, whether they have recruited somehow through the mid-year transfer window. Maybe they've found some young kids from the unders who can play. I don't know what it is. They've certainly got Lachlan Sharp, their full forward, in form because he's got to the 100 goals.
Yep.
Um, but very happy for Inglewood that they've got a couple of finals wins for the first time since 2003. But I can't see them getting through Morong and probably not through Bridgewater either. Um, anyway, so unfortunately for me, in the Paddock to Premiership, Pyramid Hill was the second team that Inglewood defeated in the finals series.
Mm.
But the first finals win over Bears Lagoon Serpentine was notable for a couple of reasons. One was the score. I noticed that the score was 11 goals 3 for Bears Lagoon Serpentine to 11 goals 18 for Inglewood. Now, you did say that good kicking is good football and bad kicking is bad football. Well,
Yep.
in this case, we have a scenario where your kicking can be really, really bad, but you've still won the game.
Mm.
So, not sure what was going on there. Even on goals at the final siren, but a 15-point margin based purely on behinds. So that's quite a funny result. And the other one, that made Bears Lagoon Serpentine's day even more disappointing in losing that elimination final was that their full forward Josh Mellington of previous AFL notoriety was stranded on 98 goals for the season. So not only did they lose the game, but if he'd managed to kick a couple more goals, he would have won them the game and he would have got to the ton. So disappointing day for them, but as I say, well done Inglewood. I'm quite happy to see that they've got a couple of finals wins.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Josh did his best. He did kick six in that game. He
Not enough.
kicked six of their 11, but unfortunately not enough for them. So
Needed to be 8 of
yeah,
13.
yeah, it clearly did. And yeah, interesting from Inglewood. I mean, they finished 6 points behind Bears Lagoon Serpentine at the
Yeah.
end of the regular season. So you probably went into that. Oh, sorry, 8 points, 2 games. Probably went into that thinking that they were, probably a bit behind the pace.
Yeah.
But they haven't shown that against Bears Lagoon and then following it up with Pyramid Hill. So some
Yeah.
really good wins there from Inglewood, but it does hurt to see someone stranded on 98 goals, I
Yeah, I
must admit.
know. I
Poor
know.
Josh.
Yeah.
Hopefully next season he can get the ton.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, I'm going to take us to a league that you and I both know really well. It's really quite dear to our heart, and it is the VAFA and it is Premier A. And Rob, in the last couple of weeks, this league has absolutely gotten hot for the finals battle and the relegation battle. Anyone that was a betting man in the last 2, 3 weeks of who was going to make finals and who was going to be relegated, I think you've probably got people in either one of two camps. Either they predicted it and they're sitting on a gold mine, or they've lost a lot of money because it has been a crazy couple of weeks, Rob. So, Old Scotch, whose season probably 3, 4 weeks ago most thought was dead in the water. I think there was probably a loss to University Blues in round 15 that I think everyone sort of thought, okay, that's Old Scotch done. Not going to defend their title. In fact, I could be mistaken. I feel like I remember seeing an article released by the VAFA saying the premiership defence is over for Old Scotch. Well, they've obviously seen that and absolutely roared into life. Round 16, they have a 22-point win over St. Bernard's. And then, unfortunately for us, round 17, they have a 105-point win against our University Blacks. They looked incredibly impressive. But not only that, Old Hailbury have lost by 83 points on the weekend to St. Bernard's, and the weekend before lost to St. Kevin's by 30 points. And then I believe, no, they beat D-Lard the week before. But they've had a bit of a poor run in recent times, Old Hailbury, and it has absolutely opened the door up for Old Scotch to now make the top four and potentially keep their premiership defence alive. And you talked about the mean machine firing at the right time. Well, Old Scotch are firing at the right time, very similar to what they did last season.
Mm.
So the ladder position as it sits here is Old Brighton on top on 60, Old Zabs 56, St. Kevin's 48. Your top three are locked away. There may be a fluctuation of who finishes first and second. It doesn't matter. They're playing each other anyway in a top four final system. Fourth is Old Hailbury on 36 points, a percentage of 99%. Old Scotch on 32 points on 105%. University Blacks also on 32 points on 82%. You probably could rule us out. I think that might be an improbable ability for us to make up that type of percentage. I might have to do some sums and see just how much we really need to win by on Saturday to
Against
potentially
second
make it.
place to Old Zavs, yeah.
The problem we've got, Rob, is that one of Old Hailbury or Old Scotch will be winning and getting 4 points because they play each other coming into the final round.
Well, they could
So
draw.
They could draw. That would not help us. That would push Old Hailbury to 38 points. A draw is all Old Hailbury need.
Yeah.
Scotch need to win, but if Scotch win, they have the greater percentage and would bump Old Hailbury down to fifth. So absolutely crazy that a few weeks back, the VAFA are writing an article saying the premiership defence is over, and they've come absolutely roaring to life. And I would think from what we saw on Saturday of Old Scotch that St. Kevin's, Old Zabs, and Old Brighton want absolutely nothing to do with that. I think that might be one where they are barracking very hard for an Old Hailbury win to try and make their finals campaign a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more. What's happening down the bottom of the ladder has also been crazy, Rob. So bottom two get relegated. De La Salle have been gone for probably most of the last 6, 7 weeks, given that they have won a total of 0 games for the season. But there has been a fluctuation between University Blues, Collegians, and St. Bernards as to who would be relegated at the end of the season. Now, last week, well, actually, let me take you a couple of weeks back. A couple of weeks back, round 16, Collegians lose to Old Zabs by 2 points. 2 points Collegians lose by. Now, that game is the one that Old Scotch beat St. Bernard's. So they're probably thinking, look, no harm done. We are still in front of them here, noting that that Collegians still have a game to come against De La Salle. They probably think, look, we've got to probably, you can never really say this in football, but we probably can bank on beating De La Salle and getting 4 points at the end of the year. So we're a game up on St. Bernard's when you think about it from that perspective. Let's go into round 17. If St. Bernard's lose, you think all we have to do is beat De La Salle and we are home and hosed. Now, Collegians probably also thinking if we can even win round 17, then, we can potentially put it out of doubt. They lose round 17 by 23 points to Old Brighton, an honourable loss against a really good team. And there were periods in that game where Collegians were very close. What's not gone to plan for them is that St. Bernard's have gone, we're not going to make it that easy on you, and have roared to life an 83-point drubbing of Old Hailbury that I mentioned before, 21-15, 141 to 7-16, 58. It is the scoring power that St. Bernard's can possess when they have their full team in. And that has now put the ladder, Rob, going into one more round with De La Salle bottom 0.46%, Collegians 22 points, 90%, St. Bernard's 26, 79%. Now, Uni Blues have had a really strong last sort of month of results. They've managed to push themselves to 28 on 90%. They're safe now, home and hosed. There's no way they can be relegated off the back of this last round. Not too surprising, I don't think. Look, they were a team that would, I think, just about beating every single team at three-quarter time in the first half of the season and managed to lose just about every single one of those games or draw them. But so they've managed to do their piece in the second half of the season to keep themselves safe. But we now go into a situation where St. Bernard's will come up against St. Kevin's at the Snake Pit. Now, if they win that, they're safe. If they lose that, they are then relying on De La Salle to win their first game of the season so that Collegians do not reach that milestone of 26 points, but with the better percentage and knock them down. I have a fair idea, Rob, that the fans of Collegians at Harry Trott Oval and the fans of St. Bernard's at the Snake Pit will be checking live scores very regularly across the course of the day. I think I will be checking scores very regularly across the course of the day with interest to both. So it's really gotten quite hot, that VAFA Premier A. We've been speaking all year about Prem B being this lion's den, who's going to make finals and who's going to be relegated and what's that going to look like. Prem A has come home with a bang.
Yes, well, unfortunately for the Uni Blacks, it's come home with a bang, but not in a good way for us. Because there was a point,
There
there was a
was.
point about 4 weeks ago where we were thinking, if we just win a few more and Haileybury lose a few more, we're a real chance for finals here. Well, Haileybury have done their bit, uh,
Yeah, well done,
but
Halebury.
unfortunately, we haven't done our bit.
No, we
So,
haven't.
but look, the two things I want to say about this. First is, I predict DLR will beat Collegians.
Oh,
So I'm predicting a left field here. I think Collegians will get relegated because I think they'll
wow.
lose on the weekend. Um,
Which goes against your original prediction that you said Bernards would go down at the start of the year.
I am campaigning against my own original prediction there because I thought St Bernard's and DLR would be the two weakest sides in this. But second thing I wanted to say is what a difference the end of the VFL season has made.
Oh,
And
definitely.
as much as I love that summary, and as much as I love A grade VAFA football, I am a little bit concerned about the undue influence that can be had on that competition by players returning from the VFL. Now, I have a pretty strong idea that St Bernard's 83-point win on the weekend was heavily bolstered by VFL talent.
It was.
I know for a fact that there are more than 10 players in that Scotch team from the weekend who've played VFL this year. And depending, I think I heard seven or nine or some numbers around that area that had come back into the team from the VFL just for that weekend against the Uni Blacks. I mean, fair play. Well done, I guess, if they've managed to get that through the points allocation. They managed to get it all above board and get it through and ticked off. And
Yep.
but boy, that's pretty tough. I mean, the Uni Blacks didn't play well on the weekend, but we were very, very stiff, I think, coming up against an old Scotch side that we, on the evidence of the first time we played them, were clearly very well matched with. We were very stiff to then come up against an old Scotch side that had so many ins. So you're right, it has come to life, that A grade, but
Yep.
I am a little concerned about the manner in which it's come to life
Yep.
in some ways.
Completely agree as well. Hard to argue with the influence those VFL players are having.
Yeah. From a neutral perspective, from an outside perspective, geez, it's good football.
Mm.
I mean, as a neutral, I would have looked at that Scotch team on the weekend and thought, oh, champagne. It was
Mm.
good football, good to watch. It almost looked like a bunch of VFL players, you know? Anyway, I won't harp on it anymore. Let's go out of the city again, Pete. I'm gonna look at a couple of the smaller leagues now. I'm gonna start with the Omeo League because I really, really like this league. And I was particularly excited to see that Buchan are on their way here in the Omeo League. My favourite nickname in all of local football, the Buchan Cavemen. They have had a really good week. They finished fourth in the six-team league up there in the Omeo District Football Netball League. Absolutely one of my favourite leagues, just for that part of the world, the unique landscape, beautiful part of the world, and the small size of the league, small size of the competition with only the seniors and the under 18s or under 16s, I think it is.
Yep. 16s. Yep.
So Pete Buchan defeated Swifts Creek in the first final. Interestingly, after having beaten them the week before in the final round of the season. So Buchan definitely had the warm up there. Or arguably Swifts Creek maybe should have known more about their opponents and didn't
Mm.
make use of it in that first final. Buchan actually played Swifts Creek 4 times in 2025, 3 times during the home and away season and the one final. Here's the record. Buchan won 3 of them in the end, including the important one, as I just said. But the margins in favour of Buchan were 55 points, 15 points, and in the final it was 25 points. And then one of those games, Swift Creek won by 62 points. So, Pete, this is just, I wish I'd had time to go back
Uh,
and kind of plot up the machinations and the toing and froing in this league. But that's just indicative of how this league goes. There are big results in both directions between most of these teams. So, well done to Buchan for prevailing in that battle with Swift Creek in the end. It's actually the first time in 6 years that Swift Creek won't feature in the Omeo District League Grand Final. So that will be Omeo Benambra
yep.
against the winner of Buchan and Swan Reach, who are playing in the preliminary final this weekend. So go Buchan, go the
Yeah.
Cavemen in that one, I reckon.
100% go Buchan. And I would actually argue that Buchan won two of the important ones because that final round, Buchan needed to win to replace Bruthen, who decided not to play their last round and got knocked out of finals when Buchan did
Yeah,
eventually
that's right.
win.
That's
So,
true, Pete. Yeah.
they've won a couple of important ones there against Swifts Creek to continue the march. So let's hope the Cavemen can continue to roll on.
Yeah.
Rob, I'm going to take us over to the Ballarat Football Netball League. There was hot competition for spots there, as we'd reported in previous episodes. Well, Bacchus Marsh and Ballarat have secured the final two spots in the Ballarat League finals after a thrilling day of action. So Bacchus Marsh ended a 7-year finals drought with a 20-point win over Sebastopol, 17-12, 114 to 14-10, 94. I tell you, sometimes reading country football scores, Rob, you can just tell that that would have been just a great game.
Yeah.
17-12 to 14-10, lots of
Yeah.
goals, lots of attacking. Again, I love the VAFA. It's if I had any criticism of the VAFA is sometimes too often you see 6 goals plays 8 goals, and it just is a little bit dire. But anyway, Ballarat secured the other spot, but they only secured the other spot after North Ballarat lost to Darley. When I say lost to Darley, I mean losing to, I believe, top of the ladder by 3 points.
Oh, wow.
3 points is North Ballarat were one more goal away from getting that final spot. That loss to Darley and the Swans 25-point win over Redan sealed their fate. So, yeah, that 3-point loss to minor premiers Darley, where they did have some chances late, Rob. They had a shot on about the 31-minute mark, which ex-AFL player Josh Morris missed. They did have another couple of attempts, couldn't get the goal. Siren goes with the ball probably 70, 80 meters out from the goal there for the Roosters. So bit of a heartbreaker for them. You can imagine how amazing that would have been to secure your final spot by knocking off the minor premiers. They gave it a red hot crack, but just couldn't quite get it done.
Yeah, another league that's been very close all year. Yeah, good summary there. I'm very, very intrigued to see how that plays out. Darley getting the wobbles a little bit at the end, maybe, or is that just a case of the Roosters coming out firing to try and secure a finals berth?
I suppose we'll find out come first finals, Rob.
Yeah,
I suppose we'll see whether that was. Although in saying that, I must admit I'm not sure what Ballarat play. I believe they might play a top six. So we probably will see Darley in action on that basis, I would assume. Let me just have a quick little look. Yes, we will. So we'll see Darley play East Point in a qualifying final. Sunbury playing Ballarat in an elimination final, and Melton playing Bacchus Marsh in an elimination final. Now, Rob, that strikes me as a really tough league. You finished third. There's no in a six final system. There's no double chance.
yeah,
So they finished 4 points, Sunbury behind East Point with a better percentage, but
yeah,
they're going to be going into an elimination final instead of a qualifying final. So
yeah,
yeah, intriguing to see how that goes. So North Ballarat miss out by 2 points. So they had a draw with Melton during the season. That is what holds them out. If they hadn't have had that draw, If they had have won that game instead of drawing, sorry, they did have superior percentage to Ballarat and would have filled out that sixth spot.
Yeah, wow.
Interestingly enough, had Sebastopol beaten Bacchus Marsh, then the finals would have looked Ballarat. In fact, Sebastopol had beaten Bacchus Marsh, they would have finished uh, fifth, and Ballarat would have finished sixth. So
Mm.
Bacchus Marsh would have been knocked out. So that Bacchus Marsh Sebastopol game as well was really winner gets into finals. Quite an incredible game there. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how the Ballarat League shakes out after this first week of finals, Rob.
Yeah. Oh, that's really fascinating. I was also wondering what happens when Darley play North Ballarat in terms of jumpers because they're both black and white with kind of a V-shaped thing on them. It's
It's a great call out. I've never actually watched Darley North Ballarat game. Maybe it's skins v shirts. I don't know. Maybe you gotta paint the number on the back of the player. I don't know. I might have to do a little bit of investigating, Rob, and see some live stream to see what they do. Although North Ballarat historically have had that white number that they do wear as well. That's white with the rooster on it.
yeah, okay.
Um, but yeah, I might have to put a little bit of work in and see what they do wear when Darley play North Ballarat.
Well, what I hope is that the Ballarat League have a set of pink jumpers with the Ballarat League logo on it that they supply in Vafa style.
Oh, let's hope they don't.
Maybe they've got some bumblebee jumpers hidden away in the cupboard.
Let's hope they don't have that as well.
All right, now having looked at the Omeo League, I'm going to go in a similar area, Pete, just a little bit further north and a little bit further west to the Upper Murray Football Netball League. Now,
Yes.
we talked about Omeo with six teams. Well, the Upper Murray League only has four. And as we said on the last show that we did, this is a competition where everyone plays finals. And in theory, one could do a Fitzroy in 1919 and go all the way to the Premiership from the bottom of the ladder. Not to be in this case, as it turns out, Corryong finished on the bottom of the ladder and didn't end up winning their first final. But um, fascinating to see the dynamics in this small league. Um, the final ladder in this league read Bullio on 10 wins,
Mhm.
two losses. Kajua on 10 wins, two losses, so only a 12 round season. Tumbarumba came in third or second bottom on four wins, and Corryong made the top four with no wins. Difficult year for Corryong. Everyone plays finals. Perhaps somewhat predictably, Corryong lost their first final to Tumbarumba, and then Tumbarumba went on in the second week to lose to Kajua, who had lost their first final to Bullio. So, look, as the way the ladder panned out, all of these finals so far have pretty much gone as you would expect. Um, but the win for Kajua over Tumbarumba was especially notable, Pete, for another century milestone. And that was John Spencer of Kajua, who's brought up the 100 goals in that second final of the season. I think that's pretty impressive
Mm.
given the limited amount of football that they get to play, only a 12 round home and away season, and he's brought up the 100th goal in the 14th game of the year, which is the second final. So very impressive there from John Spencer. And it means, Pete, that Kajua play Bullio in the grand final this weekend. Now,
Yep.
I am aware that across a range of thirds fixtures and women's fixtures in different leagues around the state and some juniors, there have already been grand finals. But I suspect that this might be the first senior grand final happening in local footy, senior men's grand final happening in local footy this year,
Yep.
given that short season.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
doing a little bit of research back into that Upper Murray League. The last three grand finals have been between Kajua and Bullio. Sorry, this is the third one in a row. The last two have
Yep.
been Kajua and Bullio.
Yep.
They're a hard two set of names to say together. Cudgeo and Bullawa, or Bullio and Cudgua. And so those last two have been shared. Kaji won in 2023 and Bullio won in 2024.
Yep.
And Kajua have been pretty successful playing in all of the last five Upper Murray League grand finals. Interestingly, I did also see that if Kajua win this grand final against Bullio, that will be their 32nd Upper Murray Football Netball League Premiership, which will take them level with top of the table Corryong. So
Mm,
Corryong are top of the table in something, um,
mm,
just not top of the 2025
the
ladder.
2025.
But yeah, I guess so few teams. There have been more teams in that league in the
Yeah.
past, but pretty impressive, even so, that Kajua and Corryong have 31 and 32 flags respectively.
Yeah, definitely. That's got to push them close to Fish Creek, will it? Oh, it's Fish
It's
Creek.
got to be close, yeah. It's a good
Yeah.
question. I don't
So
know, but it's
we
got to
might
be
have to
close.
look into that. That's really great. Yeah, I think you are right. I think Upper Murray is traditionally the first grand final that's played in Victoria. Um, and really keen to see. I like that league. I don't know. There's something about four teams going at it, and I can imagine knowing that area. That's an area that I do a little bit of work in. I can imagine that all of the people know each other from all the four clubs too. So um,
Oh yeah,
I
definitely.
can only imagine that that makes for some pretty interesting matches throughout the season. Now, Rob, I did a little check whilst you were doing that. North Ballarat wear a white, predominantly white jumper with a black V when they play Darley. Now they wear that home or away. There's a home game where they're wearing that, so maybe Darley don't have a clash, and it forces North Ballarat to do that. If I was North Ballarat, I'd definitely be requesting shirts v Skims at home games to make sure that they don't get away with that. Rob, I'm going to head to a lovely area of the Masson Rangers and the Riddle District Football Netball League. We've covered this league a little bit. This won't be a massive story, but I did just want to note that Kyneton, which is the team that have been in the Riddle League now for, I believe, this is their second season, um, won their elimination final on the weekend against Wallen by 12 points. So Wallen were last year's grand finalists, didn't win it, but they were in the grand final last year. They've had an early exit this year, and it is Kyneton's first win in nearly 3 decades. So quite impressive there for the club. There is an article going on Code Sports where Coach Ethan Foreman asked before the game how many players had played in a senior final, and he had four hands come back at him. And so there were 18 players out there that were experiencing their first senior final, which he admitted was probably on display because he said Wallen hit them pretty hard in the first quarter and was pretty hot around the ball. But they did what needed to be done. And Angus Nolte finished with a match high 6 goals in a starring performance. So incredible work there by Kyneton. I'm sure they're very happy to have had their first win. And they will now go up against, job doesn't get any easier, going up against Diggers Rest, who had a shock loss to Riddle. Maybe not a shock loss in terms of losing to Riddle, because Riddle have been impressive throughout this season. But by memory, it was about an 80-point drubbing that Riddle have given Diggers Rest, which for the season Diggers Rest have had, that is shocking. So it'll be really intriguing to see what comes out of that when Kyneton test their might against Diggers Rest this weekend.
Yeah, but don't forget that Wallen beat Diggers Rest the week before. And
Correct.
so if Kyneton can beat Wallen, that's definitely what Ethan will be saying to his boys, that they beat Diggers Rest and we've beaten them, so anything's possible. Uh,
Correct.
and that could definitely be a case of the wheels falling off a little bit for Diggers Rest. It's all very well being good at the start of the season, but you've got to be playing well when the finals come round. So
Yep.
interesting test for Diggers
Well,
Rest.
I think you're absolutely right. If you look at Diggers Rest recent results, they lose that qualifying final by 83 points. The week before, Rob, they lose to Lancefield by 3 points, who have
Yeah.
barely won a game all season.
In several seasons.
Correct. And then they lose round 17 to Wallen by 5 points. So they've gone three losses in a row. If there's anything for me that signposts that's not a great sign, it's the loss to Lancefield, who had two wins for the season, one of them being against top of the ladder. So, yeah, interesting watch this weekend. Kyneton v Diggers Rest. That is at Gilbert Gordon Reserve on the Sunday. So might be one that people might want to go out and have a look at if they've played on the Saturday and have a free Sunday to do something.
Mm, absolutely. All right. I'm going to have a look, Pete, at the Picola League. Now,
Hey,
this is one that sneaks under the radar a little bit because they are unaffiliated with AFL Vic.
right.
They do their own thing. They go it alone. I've got to say, I don't mind it. Don't mind a little bit of independence like that. And also, because they're unaffiliated, you can't find them on Play HQ. You've got to go through the old Game Day app, which is
Yeah.
which is a little bit of a blast from the past, having a look there through the Game Day website to work out what is going on in the Pecola District Football Netball League. It's a big league, Pete. I hadn't looked at it for a little while, so I was surprised to be reminded that there's 15 teams and a final eight. So another final eight in local footy, which is pretty cool to see. So the team that is the team to beat is Waya. Waya. We
Why,
might need
why,
help.
why,
Okay, Waya.
yeah.
All right, there we go. So I didn't even know how to pronounce that. They're the team to beat. They've been undefeated through the home and away season, 16 and zip. So very impressive effort by them, at the risk of not pronouncing it correctly again. Um, look, to be honest, most of the first week of the finals went pretty much as expected, but the close ones were Katamatite over Katandra by 9 points in a qualifying final. How's that for a pair of names playing each other? Katamatite and Katandra. Um, Good connections through a mate of mine with Katandra, so good to see them up there in the finals, the Katandra Cats with a K. And the other final was very close. It was Tungamar defeating Pecola United by 7 points in the elimination final. That result a little more significant when you consider that Pecola kicked 3 goals to 1 behind in the last quarter. So Tungamar have very much held on for dear life in that last quarter. Um, but another one, Pete, where we've seen the century cracked in the first week of the finals. And in this case, it's Nick McKeon kicking his 100th goal for Tungamar for this season in that finals win. So we've seen players get stranded in the high 90s, and we've seen a couple of players get there in the first week of the finals to the ton.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great little coverage there of a league we don't talk much about because, as you said, they sometimes slip under that radar, not being on Play HQ. I don't know how I feel about um, kicking the ton in finals. I feel like the ton to me, this is just a personal thing. The ton to me is always something that is like do it in the regular season. That's where it's special when you've been able to get it done in the home and away. When finals are included as part of that, I always start to feel like, yeah, well, of course they've kicked a ton. They got to play 5 or 6 more games than old mate that didn't get to. But yeah, congratulations there to Nick for his 100. Rob,
Is that like you don't get Brownlow votes in the finals? Is that
yeah, sort of. It's just more of a vibe thing from me. So like the Jeremy Cameron, will he kick 100 thing? I sort of look at that and go, well, no, he missed his opportunity. We're in finals now. Anyway, we'll move on from my preferences in the game. I mean, we could go through my scoring system again if we really want to trudge over old ground, but. We've had a lot of really positive elements we've spoken about on today's podcast, Rob. unfortunately going to take us down a slightly different route. Sometimes the game isn't always as good as we want it to be. And I saw that in the Essendon District Football League, a local footballer had been banned for making a homophobic slur directed at a spectator. Um, was given a three-match ban, the player from Aberfeldy, um, by the Essendon District Football League Tribunal. However, could be set for an even longer stint on the sidelines. Something I haven't seen too often in local football, Rob. See it sometimes in AFL football, but haven't seen it a whole lot in local footy, is the league is actually appealing the sanction given by the independent tribunal,
Mm,
and actually saying that we're not satisfied with 3 weeks. We would like a review from the independent tribunal. So
mm,
it happened in the Premier Division men's clash against Deer Park. But yeah, there's a little bit to play out there where the EDFL are actually appealing what's been given by the independent tribunal there off the back of what we've seen. Of course, this is a local footy show, but of course, everyone has probably seen what's happened there with Isaac Rankin at Adelaide, and more so, people may have seen the news just recently around Mitch Brown, former West Coast player and former Scobs player for in the VAFA. So
mm.
we've come up against Mitch a few times from a Uni Blacks perspective. Him coming out as bisexual today. So yeah, a little bit disappointing there around that. Apparently, there was a lot of barbs being thrown left and right between the spectator and the player, but the players clearly stepped over the line there with some of that and used that homophobic slur. So yeah, it's disappointing, Rob. It's not something we want to see in our game. And clearly, from AFL level all the way down to local football, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in educating the people that play this great game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, really hate hearing about anything like that happening at any level of football. And without really wanting to get deeply into the AFL situation, you just
Mm,
have to think that everything that's happened there regarding that sanction to Isaac Rankin is made even more imperative by hearing news that this happens at the lower levels because we do know just how much people, especially young people, pay attention to what their AFL stars do and consequences of AFL stars' actions if they step out of line are really important. And so maybe a good sign there that the league is challenging
yep, agreed.
and proving themselves perhaps to be um, cut from a different moral cloth than maybe some of the people at the top echelons
Oh, Rob,
of the bigger league.
you're not suggesting that the AFL have poorly managed the situation, have you? Surely not.
I rest my case. No, that good to cover that, Pete. It's not a nice story, but it's good to recognise that that's happened and to make a point that it needs to be stamped out. This has got to stop.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, at any level of life, let alone on the football field where we all just want to get on with enjoying the football and not
yeah,
have to not have
agreed.
to deal with shit like this.
Here, here.
Okay, so I'm going to take us down to the Mornington Peninsula Football Netball League. Um, Pete, about halfway through the season, round 10, Langwarrin knocked off Rosebud down there in the Div 1 of the Mornington Peninsula Football Netball League. And at that point, it was Rosebud's first loss for the season. They ended up going on to finish top of the ladder with only two losses for the season, Rosebud. But Langwarrin didn't win another game until round 17 of that season. However, oh sorry, I say round 17, but I actually mean round 16 until the third last round of the season. And at that point, they'd slipped seemingly out of finals contention. And then, this was also including, by the way, losses to Dramana and to Pines and Sorrento, who all finished significantly lower on the ladder in the end than Langwarrin. Langwarrin have done an old Scotch Pete. They've come from the clouds and they've won their last three games of the season to sneak into finals.
Wow.
Very impressive work by Langwarrin there, who looked pretty much dead and buried at about round 14, 15, needing a bit of a miracle. They did get some help with Dramana and Pines losing games that they perhaps might have been expected to win late in the season. A
Mhm.
little bit like old Haileybury losing some games they might have been expected to win in the VAFA A grade. It's a very, very similar scenario and Langwarrin have been the beneficiaries there. So um, Langwarrin defeated Mount Eliza only a handful of weeks ago by 17 points, and that is the team that they will now play in their first final down there in the Mornington Peninsula League Div 1. So well done to Langwarrin on pulling the fat out of the fire there and getting themselves up into finals. And given that they beat Mount Eliza pretty recently, you'd have to think they would go in favourites to win a fourth game in a row
Mm.
and extend their run a little bit further into the season. So the other finals happening there are the Stone Cats of Frankston YCW playing Edithvale Aspendale um, and Rosebud finishing top of the ladder in the final five will get the week off and a straight run into the prelim final.
Amazing.
So a pretty even setup there in the Mornington Peninsula League Div 1. Uh, Reasonable number of points in the end separating first from fifth.
Mhm.
So 64 points with only two losses for Rosebud down to 40 points for Langwarrin in the end. But as I said, Langwarrin have beaten Rosebud this year. And so it's all fairly even and be very interested to see how that final series plays out down there on the peninsula.
Yeah, that's great, Rob. Peninsula League, not one we've covered a lot, but
No.
always intriguing when we do. Look, there's so much football. It's so hard
Yeah.
to cover everything, isn't it? And not only that, some of those leagues like the Peninsula have multiple divisions within it that we could almost do a show just on one league, let alone trying to cover the whole state as we do.
But
Rob, I've
we have covered the bottom end of Div 2 of the Boddington Peninsula League quite
We have.
extensively.
We have covered that one quite extensively, and don't know whether we'll be covering it again off the back of how that's gone. But I've got one more on my list, Rob. I've been trying to keep all of our listeners and viewers up to date on club transfers. So clubs looking to apply and go into new leagues. There has been probably the one we've spoken about, probably two that we've spoken about the most has been the Golden Rivers Central Murray merger and what that looks like. Now it looks like pretty much all of those teams will be playing in Central Murray outside of just the one, which is the name of the club.
McCorner.
Thank you, McCorner, who are looking actually Loddon Valley way,
Yeah.
is the way they're looking. No sort of further update on what their plans are there from that, but it looks like it'll be a bumper Central Murray league with lots of teams in that, which is great. The other one we've probably spoken the most about is the Gisborne Football Netball Club looking to move from the Bendigo League to the Ballarat League. So Rob, since we last presented on this situation, I can confirm that Gisborne Football Netball Club have been accepted by the Ballarat Football Netball League with a vote of 46-4 in favour. Again, another area where they've released the numbers. Oh my goodness, incredible. The club vote, so the club had a vote of its members to decide which way they would want to go. Did they want to stay in the Bendigo League or move to Ballarat League? There's about 200 odd people plus involved in that meeting. It was a vote of 190 to 20 in favour. Now, I've somewhat been informed that that 20 as well weren't necessarily 20 votes against, but potentially 20 people that abstained from voting as opposed to voting no. So, it could have even been actually more in terms of what the yes to no
Mm.
was. But Rob, as of today, as of very much filming this podcast, the Bendigo Football Netball League, probably to the shock of absolutely no one, given their statements when Gisborne said they wanted to move, have released a statement saying they do not approve of the move and will block it. It now goes to AFL Victoria, who have 14 days to make a decision on the future of the Gisborne Football Netball Club. I am just wanting to find, sorry, I did have it up just before, a statement from the Bendigo Football Netball League that was provided as part of this with a media release.
I've got it
Um,
here.
I do just want to read some of this out.
Yeah,
In fact, it's not that big. I might read all of it out.
yep.
Uh, the Bendigo Football Netball League wishes to advise that it will be appealing the recent Gisborne Football Netball Club transfer request. The BFNL remains steadfast in believing that the Gisborne Football Netball Club is an integral part of the league's competition and community and is committed to pursuing all available avenues to ensure the club's continued participation in the BFNL. The BFNL has a responsibility to safeguard the strength, stability, and sustainability of the league. And given Gisborne Football Netball Club's reputation within the BFNL, we believe their ongoing involvement is important to the health of our clubs, players, volunteers, and supporters. The BFNL will continue to follow the relevant AFL Victoria processes. So we are now due a decision from AFL Victoria within the next 14 days on that. Historically, I don't believe AFL Victoria have ever approved a club transfer where the host league is appealing, but I also am not sure whether we have seen numbers that are quite this convincing in terms of a league that definitely wants them to join. So interesting. Look, we've gone for a big episode and we could probably do a whole episode just on this alone. So I don't want to extend it too long where we're doing a 90-minute episode instead of what we've already done. But for me, Rob, yeah, this is the Bendigo Football Netball League just somewhat reaping what they've sowed in terms of no interest in saving Kyneton from moving a league. They had zero interest in that. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. They had zero interest in keeping Maryborough afloat and alive. They didn't put many resources or support into that. Now I think they look at that and they see a strong member of their league that wants to leave because they've provided very little reasoning for them not to want to leave, other than, potentially you could win some premierships. And I think they're just getting what they've basically laid out from a pathway from previous years. So I can only imagine that maybe that board sits back now and goes, the decision to let Kyneton leave could be one of the all-time fumbles
Mm.
because it now gives Gisborne absolutely nothing in terms of locality of that Bendigo Football Netball League. The closest club to them is Castlemaine, close to 45, 50 minutes away. Beyond that, it is an hour away for them to every single other club in this league.
Yeah, I was pretty interested to read in that statement as you read out that the BFNL has recognized its responsibility to safeguard the strength, stability, and sustainability of the league. I mean,
Yeah.
that's newsworthy that they've actually recognized that at some point. So I'm glad that they've belatedly recognized that responsibility. Um, Not only would it be momentous for AFL Vic to reject this on the basis of the Ballarat League's vote, but also the strength of that members' vote from Gisborne too. That would be a precedent that would be very, very difficult to allow any club to ever transfer against the wishes of the first league, um, of the incumbent league, you might say. If this is not the one that can be overturned on the basis of numbers, I don't know what numbers you would need.
Yeah.
So very interested to see what happens there.
Yeah, I think that as a final word before we move on, because as I said, we could, and maybe we will, we might bring footy fire starters back next week to really dig into this. But
Well, when we have a
um,
decision, we should, yeah.
yeah, agreed. But I completely agree, Rob. And if these sorts of numbers don't give the AFL Victoria what they need to say to Bendigo, sorry, but we approve this transfer of Gisborne to Ballarat, there might as well not even be a process where AFL Victoria decide what happens in that case. There might as well just be if the host league says no, it's no, because if AFL Victoria don't rule
Yeah,
differently on this basis, then what are they doing?
yeah.
Toothless tiger is what the word that comes to mind for AFL Victoria, and I think it's going to be put to the test with this one. I did have a little bit of a laugh as well, along with you, Rob. Not only that, I also looked at the Bendigo Football Netball League strategic plan, where one of their pillars was trying to create competitive balance. Now, I don't know whether that meant competitive balance of Sandhurst can win every single premiership from now until eternity. It didn't give any more detail on that, but that's the competitive balance they've been going for. I mean, that board should hang their head in shame.
Shots fired. Got the 4 points, has got footy fire starters back in an unofficial
Capacity.
but very vehement capacity. Very
We'll bring
good.
it. We'll bring it back next week, and I think we'll
Can
tackle
tee
that
off.
one head on.
Yeah, once we have a decision, we can tee off on that. All
Yep.
right. We better get to our Paddock to Premiership picks, Pete. It's going to be a quick one for me. I'll tell you what. Don't know about you, but I'm getting to the end of my tether, and thankfully to the end of the season with some of these teams. No, that's a bit harsh. I love them dearly, but it's been a tough one. I'm gonna get the toughest one out of the way first, and that is to say that the team that was my big hope has
Mm,
fallen in a heap,
yeah,
and they have exited in straight sets. Now, when I said at the top of the episode about having missed a week and suddenly finals are on, well, we've missed a week and suddenly Pyramid Hill season's over.
gone.
So that's extremely disappointing. We did talk a bit about the Loddon Valley League earlier. Pyramid Hill have been completely run over the top of by Bridgewater, both in the sense of the season and their ladder position at the end of the home and away season. Pyramid Hill was sitting pretty in second most of the season
Yep.
until Lachlan Sharp and the Mean Machine came to life. Um, and then they got run over them in perfect metaphorical fashion in the first final as well. And then the really disappointing one, they lost to Inglewood by 42 points in the second final. So, yeah, they really well and truly out in straight sets and a bit of an early Mad Monday there for the Bulldogs of Pyramid Hill, unfortunately.
Yep, not great for Pyramid Hill. Straight sets is never what you want. There'll be a bit of soul searching, I think, there at the club. They've been up for so long in the last
Mm.
few years in the Loddon League, and I feel like a straight sets exit might have a few questioning whether they need to reset and see what that means. But we'll see where they land. Probably similar to you, Rob, a team that I had some high hopes for in Castlemaine. I can say that thankfully the season is finally over. It's off the back of a 4 point loss against South Bendigo 2 weeks ago and a 27 point loss against Eagle Hawk in the last round, which all in all is actually not too bad against two final bound teams. Um, in positive news, the reserves have made finals. It's the first time in nearly 20 years that an open age men's football team for Castlemaine is playing finals. So big credit there to the reserves. Clearly, a hell of a lot better than when I used to play.
No correlation. Pete, another team that I'm kind of keen to be done with, but we can't quite get done with yet,
Mm.
is Fitzroy. Um, so they lost to Old Trinity by 10 goals and then to Old Carey by 49 points. In the notes here, I've written final game this week against, and then haven't written anything else, which kind of sums up my level of care right now. for how the Roy boys are doing, unfortunately.
Uh,
I think it is Caulfield potentially. No, that's anyway. I'll look up who Fitzroy are playing in the last game. Um, they won't win it because it's not Hampden. So
That's probably fair given how their season has gone.
yeah.
Rob, I'm going to go Tulibuck Manangatang. They were pushing for that final spot against final spot. Great wordplay there by me. They were pushing for that spot against Kundruk. They had a 6 point win in the second last round against Kundruk, which opened up the finals chance. All they needed was for Kundruk to not win their last game or to win their last game or to try and keep percentage to somewhat a manageable area. None of that ended up happening, Rob. They got absolutely smoked by Wurinen in the final round, and Kundruk absolutely smoked Swan Hill to get a good win and good percentage. And they have managed to get in above Tulibuck Manangatang on percentage. So season over for Tulibuck Manangatang.
Season also over for Karingal, who lost their last game of the season to Rye by only 27 points. So, look, last game of the season, possibly sang the song after that one, I'm not sure. That's not a bad result against Rye. Tough season down there in the bullpen for Karingal, for Coach Nathan Burke. Be interested to see if he sticks around. Um,
Mm,
Wonder, what he's been able to do for the club. I have to say that having followed them throughout the season, the results have improved.
yep.
The margins have come down, and they did manage to get one win where at about a half or a third of the way through the season, we were thinking, will they get within 80 points kind of thing. So um, I think there has been some improvement there, and hopefully Berkey sees enough to stick around.
Yep.
But yes, overall, a disappointing year for the Kringle men. The Kringle women's seniors finished third on the ladder out of six
Yep.
in that competition. So they did play in the finals. They won their first final, but unfortunately ended up losing the preliminary final to Warragul Industrials on the weekend. So
Mm.
season over completely down there in the bullpen at Kringle.
Yep, and always interesting to me, Warragul Industrials, two Warragul clubs, same oval, different leagues.
Mm,
I used to think that was incredibly crazy until I came to the Blacks, where it's two clubs, same league.
mm.
Um, so,
Three clubs, two leagues.
well, yeah, correct. So yeah, very interesting there. But yeah, bad luck to Karingal women's on that prelim final loss. Rob, season over for Monash Blues, but a successful season. 2 weeks ago, with the second last round, they took relegation completely off the table. They took it completely off the table mathematically, defeating Alstonwick by 58 points. They got absolutely dominated in the last round of the season by Oakley. Who cares? Not me. They're still in Div 1. They're not going down to Div 2. They've avoided the triple drop. I'm stoked for them. I'm hoping this can be the foundation they now need to build into moving back up the grades into the future. They've stopped that spiral down, and now it's about building a foundation to try and come back up.
Yep, very good. Well done, Monash Blues. Happy to see them staying where they are and not going down any further
Yeah,
for the sake of non-private school teams in the VAFA, for the sake of university clubs in the VAFA. I'm happy about that.
yeah,
Right, my last one, also in the VAFA, Old Trinity, my ring-in pick. They had a big win over Fitzroy, and then the really big one, Pete, a
yeah,
good one for me to finish on
yeah.
personally for this paddock to Premiership. A 12-point win for OTs over ladder leaders Old Ivanhoe, which took Trinity to the top of the table in B grade. Now, they finished their season away to Caulfield Grammarians, who've had a very, very good last few weeks and are currently sitting third. Um, but wait, have I written something a bit strange here? Yeah, anyway, so Caulfield Grammarians are sitting third, but
Mm-hmm.
Old Camberwell and Old Carey are breathing down their necks. So if Camberwell and Carey win, then Caulfield can still drop out of the finals, I believe. So Caulfield will be coming out fighting for this one.
Yep.
If Old Trinity win, they are currently a game clear on top. If they win, they will keep that spot. If they lose, they are very likely to drop to second because Old Ivanhoe, second place team, play the bottom team, Hampton,
Yep.
and will very likely get a decent percentage boost from that, unless Old Ivanhoe decide that they're guaranteed to finish top two and will rest some players, which is, I think that's unlikely. I think Ivanhoe will probably win pretty handily against Hampton, and so very interesting to see how things end up there in Prem B. Yep, plenty of interest in that final round with the last couple of final spots still
Yep.
to be decided.
Yep.
Uh, Relegation's done and dusted. We know who that's going to be, but the final two could still switch places. So,
Yeah, lots could still happen there. I mean, just quickly on that from a VAFA Prem B perspective, Old Trinity on 56, 136.97%, Old Ivanhoe on 52, 136.20%. So if Trinity drop and Ivanhoe win and then win by enough, which you think they will against Hampton, they could go back up on top. Caulfield on 44, 111%, Old Camberwell 40 on 116%. Old Carey 40 on 109%, and Williamstown 36 on 117%. Probably all still within a chance. Williamstown need a little bit to go right there, but they're significant better percentage than Old Carey and Camberwell puts them in a chance of getting that fourth spot as well. That's going to be another interesting watch of live scores on Saturday for that one. Rob, I'm going to finish off with my hoppers. Now, what's happened in the Ovens and Murray League, it's probably one we could have touched on
yeah,
because it was quite an impressive one. However, there was also a lot of other things happening. It does feel like we've spoken about the Ovens and Murray quite a lot. But 2 weeks ago, I'll take you to 2 weeks ago, they defeat Corowa by 41 points. Perfect. It puts them into a game where they play against Myrtleford. Now, the winner of that game is one of them's going to finish third, and the other is going to finish fourth. So the one is going to get a double chance, and one is going into an elimination final. And boy, oh boy, did the game absolutely deliver, Rob. There were some familiar names, as you mentioned, around a VFL perspective. Dom Brew, who people might know
mm,
for Werribee. He's been an absolute heart and soul of that club and probably of the VFL as well. He was playing there for the Hoppers, but it's been a heartbreaking loss for the Hoppers. Or if you're on the Myrtleford side, an absolute inspiring win. 11-12-78 Myrtleford to North Albury 11-11-77. 1 point classic, and that 1 point has decided who gets the double chance. So Myrtleford now with the double chance. The Hoppers, as they did last season, now going to have to try and make their way from the elimination final onwards. They did quite well at that last season, and we'll see what they can do this season. However, in terms of the Joshua twins, Murphy, kick six, was an absolute handful for Myrtleford all day. Minogue receives significant ankle injury in the
mm,
third quarter. Now, he had been quite well held until that point, but he came off in the third quarter with a significant ankle injury and was not seen for the rest of the game. And there's reports that we may not see him for the rest of the season. So he might be done. And we've seen from the Hoppers' results in the years where in the games where they didn't have Murphy and Minogue going at it, that they are much more gettable than when those two are in the team. They have an elimination final coming up this Saturday against the Wang Magpies. They are 1-1 in that ledger. So they've won one and lost one. I'm really keen to see what happens Ovens and Murray because it's been a really tight, close league all year. And I think we've still got a few upsets to come when it comes to finals time. So keen to see how that pans out.
yeah, absolutely. So much happening. There is a lot of stuff. I was just having a little gander at the Prem C relegation race
Yeah, I know.
too. I don't know if you've seen that, but
Yeah, it's
there's
all
so much
happening.
that we could cover. Look, Pete, I think we better wrap it up. We've got to the end of our Paddock to Premiership. Next week, we'll have lots and lots of finals to cover. We'll try and get to some leagues that we haven't talked about today. And if your team is playing finals, if you've got a special story, if you've got someone that's getting close to 100 goals, if you've got a great final story for us, if you've got big winning streaks going on, there's lots and lots of big winning streaks happening and some winning streaks being broken at the pointy end of the season as well. Let us know all about them. We'll hopefully cover a few other leagues heading into finals, and we will have our first Premier to discuss in the Upper Murray League as well. So we look forward to bringing that all to you next week. In the meantime, if your side's still in it, we hope they get the 4 points, and we'll see you next time.